I want to just spend a minute talking market, and then we're going to get into some technical discussion. But you know, the three of your three companies are representative of a number of preclinical and early clinical companies who are playing in this space, sort of a resurgence of the activity we see in that space. And I'm curious about your, I guess, perception of the market in terms of venture capital and funding. Do you see stakeholders and investors sort of remaining gun shy from past failures, or is there sort of an opening up of the market? Robert, I'll start with you since you're, there you go.
Yeah, I'll start with this one. So, yeah, I mean, we've definitely seen, I mean, just across the entire biotech industry, you know, we've seen a move away from, you know, venture capitalists jumping into biotech. You know, the current thesis on the street has really been going after, you know, companies that are going to be profitable within the next 18 months, you know, the whole value investing.
Yeah.
The one exception that has really been this space has been the RNA space, whether it's, you know, CDMOs that are in the LNP space that are starting up, you know, in both the for mRNA production as well as for, you know, drug product, you know, the LNP production, all the way to companies that are, you know, that have a history in the mRNA space. You know, we're seeing a great deal of, you know, real interest from investors, both from VCs, from, you know, individual investors in this space. So, you know, even though the entire biotech industry is in somewhat of a downturn right now, you know, the early biotech industry is in a downturn. You know, this space it's you know, currently pretty hot. And, you know, like I'm going to bio next in 2 weeks and have a full dance card for bio, without a doubt. So
yeah, Joe, I'm interested in your perspective on that. Dr. Georgantas, you know, obviously pointed the RNA sort of craze. What about Therapeutics? Are you seeing some interest?
I will say the interest and the intrigue about the modality is still there, as it has been, and I would say that with maybe the exception of one, all big pharmas have had interest in the virotherapy space, or oncolytic viruses as they have been more traditionally called in the past. But in general, I would say that the headwinds are strong at this point in time, and we have seen most recently AstraZeneca pulling out of a collaboration with virotherapy Biotechs. So I think it is not easy goings right now, but in my mind, it is a reflection, I think, of the scrutiny that the immunotherapy field is in general. While it has been sort of the undertone for quite a few years, I think it's out in the open a little bit more to say that despite the billions of dollars invested in immunotherapy over the last 20 years, we haven't made the next big leap after the PD-1, PD-L1 axis inhibition. Of course, we have made incremental improvements, and for those patients that benefit from those drugs, it is an immense value that immunotherapy can bring. But the field as a whole hasn't made the next jump. And I think virotherapy often gets put into the immunotherapy bucket and therefore is part of that downturn. But it is an opportunity for us as scientists to convince the field that we now do know how to modulate the immunotherapy or the tumor microenvironment better. We can work together to educate better to get out on the other side of this downfall. But headwinds are clearly there.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Joe. Peter, anything to add there?
Are you asking about investors on the biotech, VC, big pharma dynamic and that interplay and that model? So I think we have seen a shift the last couple of years. To start with, I agree with the headwind, but we have seen a shift. And I don't know if that's spurred by COVID and the emergence of the RNA as a platform. But I think what we have seen historically, if you go back to 10, 15 years, is big pharma mainly being interested in single assets, VCs perhaps more interested in funding platforms. I think what we're seeing now with the data points that I have here is perhaps the opposite, that the big pharma companies are really interested in looking for the platforms. It could just be that they want to get into the RNA space and want to get into platforms, but I think it's a little bit broader than that. Whereas venture capitalists are lagging behind there and doing this, and still what we have seen, still looking for single assets, which doesn't perhaps fully leverage the potential of the platform companies that we are that the three of us here are representing.